Brother Lyles coming at you with another video, and this time I got my lovely wife again. And we want to talk a little bit about our trip yesterday to Jamestown, Virginia for the 1619 Fest. That was to commemorate the 400 years since the first slaves under British rule came here to North America. We know that slaves were in the Western Hemisphere long before 1619, but for official purposes of the British Empire, they were the first recorded slaves to come. So it's a marker for those of you that believe in the 400-year prophecy about us being scattered all across the globe, that Britain, in my opinion, being the revised Roman Empire, which you see in the book of Daniel as the 10 toes with that's mingled with the clay. I believe from my perspective, that was more significant, because even though Spain and Portugal had slaves in South America, the Caribbeans, and Central America, Britain was the rising empire. The saying was the sun never set on the British Empire, and it was pretty much transporting slaves to all points of the globe where they had empires, and America was probably in the estimation of many people, the last destination for the European powers. They had already gone to Asia, Africa, and South and Central America. America was the last frontier, and I believe from a prophecy standpoint, for me, that's where the clock began ticking for the time that we would begin one of our final servitudes. There was other places that we were enslaved, but America, to me, has held more significance, in my opinion, not just because my ancestors were part of it, but if you look back at all the places where we were enslaved, we, in my opinion, our descendants received the harshest treatment. So that's what it meant to me when I talked to my wife a couple of months ago, when I said I wanted to go to some kind of celebration or some kind of commemoration for us, us being the descendants of those that made it. And I went online about a month ago and found this fest, because I had talked to my wife earlier, and I said President Trump had signed the bill that says 2019 was supposed to commemorate us being in slavery, and they were supposed to do festivals and workshops and stuff from August last year to August this year, but we hadn't seen anything. This is the only thing that I seen, and so I talked to her, and of course my wife, she said yeah, because she's really into Black history. So I'll let her talk a little bit what she thought about when I told her about the 1619 fest.
Yes, when you told me about the 1619 fest, I was really shocked to even hear like something like that was going on, because a lot of us, I guess we have forgotten about how far we have come. So I was very excited about going.
Yes.
I even got the kids roused up about it, and they agreed that they wanted to come. And I was telling them about the importance of remembering how far our ancestors have come, and how we're going forth in the future, that we can't forget. But I was very excited to know about it, because I love Black history. I love our people. I love what God has done for us, And even in the midst of trial and confusion that's going on here in America and elsewhere, that we are a blessed people. I don't think there's no other people on the earth like us.
Yes.
You know, we have been despised, but yet there are people who like to emulate us, but don't want to share in the struggle.
Yes. And so I had sketchy understanding about what was going to happen when we got there. They had an itinerary, sort of, and I kind of thought in my mind this was going to be a place where we could actually go and see the actual place where the 20 and odd slave. That's how they had it recorded. We're going to talk to you about that word and odd a little bit later. We found out so much stuff. It wasn't exactly what we thought it was going to be in the sense of where the location was. When we went there, it took us about 4 hours to get there from where we're at here in North Carolina to get to Jamestown, Virginia. Is right outside of Williamsburg. We had been to Williamsburg before a long time ago. It was a little timeshare thing we did. It was probably back in 2001 or whatever when we went, but we had never been to Jamestown, and so took us about 4 hours to get there. Like I said, when we got there, we found it's a national park. We went and we checked in. It was another lady. We're not going to mention her name because we don't know if she wants us to mention her, but we'll just say it was another lady that was there also, and she was there for. She said she had went to a pre-1619 event last year. That they've been knowing about this event since last year, that they was going to plan another one. And so we first they gave you an opportunity to go down to some of the sites on your own. The official tour was going to start in like 30 minutes, but they gave us 30 minutes just to walk around on our own. And we went down, and what I found out when I got there was this was not going to be the actual place where the 20 and odd slaves were taken off, but actually it was one particular slave that was with that group. Her name was Angela, right?
Yes.
Her name was Angela. That's what they named her. We don't know what her name was. She was from Angola, Luanga. And we want to do a shout out to Benai Israel to let him know that everything that you said was on point.
Yes.
Of course, they didn't say anything about them being black Jews or whatever, but they did state that the 32 slaves that were kidnapped from the Portuguese on the Portuguese ship, they were from Luanda. That's what they said, Angola. So just like he said, the very first slaves that came here under the British, let's just say that, were the descendants, or at least those people that had been kicked out of Spain, the black Hebrews that Benai Israel talked about. So anyway, getting back to what we was talking about, Angela, this place was the plantation that she was sent to, and maybe they said it might have been some other slaves, but the 20 slaves that came there, they actually was taken to a place in the, I guess Fort Monroe might be maybe 10 miles or maybe more from there. That's where they actually were unloaded from, in this place called Point Comfort in Fort Monroe, which we plan on going to see that. But this spot was not one of the ones. What they did was they took these different slaves and they spread them to different plantations that was in the area. And this particular one was the plantation that she was at, and this was a place also where they were doing archaeological digs to try to find her remains. They say they think they closed. But anyway, it was still good because they gave us an overview of and this is incredible. Me and my wife, we was just so shocked to hear some of the stuff that we heard. And I'm skipping around because I'm trying to hit some of the key points, because if I try to tell you everything, this video would run out. And my wife, she has some things she wanted to say too. But apparently, this telling of the slave side of Jamestown, this was not started, and you're gonna be shocked when I tell you this, until 2016. They said that when they talked about Jamestown, Virginia, they said it was the policy of because actually, even though it's a U.S. national park, it's a private group or something that does the tours of the place. Mm-hmm. And one of the tour guides said that it was their official policy up until 2016 that the part that the slaves played in the how did he say it, in the creation and the functioning of Jamestown was not even thought of when they did the tours. He said basically they never told you from the perspective of the slave until 2016. And apparently what happened was, he said Tavis Smiley and Cornel West, they got a committee together and said, now you need to start talking about what happened here at Jamestown from the perspective of the slaves. And so they created a separate tour for people that wanted to find out about Jamestown, Virginia, entirely from the perspective of the slaves, and telling you how the functioning and the creation of Jamestown couldn't have been done without the slaves.
Well overdue.
Can you understand what I'm saying here? That when up until 2016, if you was a visitor to Jamestown, when they would talk to you about what happened in Jamestown, the slaves' perspective wasn't even an afterthought. And he said that was their official policy. But when we start hearing some of the stuff that they was saying, Jamestown 1619, listen to me, it had profound effects for us as African Americans, Hebrews, blacks, whatever you want to call us, that reverberated from the time that we got those shores to now. I'll let my wife say something about it, because I want to go a little bit more in depth with what he was saying when he talked about the governance and the foundation of the colony, or rather the British, the Virginia Company. I'll let my wife say, because it's just incredible.
Well, the guy, he talks a lot about how, where in the past it wasn't even mentioned how much the slaves had contributed to the development of Jamestown, and how they were needed, but they weren't being recognized for what they had done. They even built was the governor's home twice. They had to rebuild it, but you know who really built it. Yeah. It was our people.